so your question for today, this again goes back to mandates. So it's a very interesting one. And I believe this is actually a question from an estate agent about another agency or another mandate. And it is concerning because it sounds to me like a seller committed themselves for 1 year to a specific agency for the listing, right? 1 year, sole exclusive, nothing else applies. You can't go to any other agent. Unfortunately, as Nick will explain, the exclusive nature of the contract also hampers the seller. So that's one portion of the question that you'll have to go and just explain a little bit. And now it also appears that this agency hasn't actually been able to get any deals in or any offers in, and it's been now already a number of months. So you've got a 1 year contract, one agency, completely bound to it. If the person tries to withdraw, apparently the seller is going to be held liable for the commission, but the agent actually hasn't brought in any OTP. So Nick, from your side, is this legally binding? Are there any solutions for the seller?
Great. So let's just deal with periods first, because the first question is, if you enter into a mandate for a period of a year, is that legally enforceable? Okay. And there is nothing within our law that specifically deals with the periods of a mandate which would invalidate that mandate. So apart from where you get into things like the Consumer Protection Act, which doesn't want you to enter into agreements for a period of in excess of 2 years without some sort of financial benefit which is set out for the consumer of a service, okay? A year-long mandate, there's absolutely nothing wrong with such a mandate within our law. The one trick with sole mandates is that there is a requirement in law that if you are going to enter into a sole mandate, that mandate is reduced to writing and signed by the parties. And this is specifically to protect the parties and so that the terms of such sole mandate is clear in the circumstances. But that doesn't look like an issue in respect to this particular question. It looks like that was in fact done. But insofar as the length of the mandate, absolutely fine. This is something that if you are a prospective seller of a property in the circumstances, you obviously want to look out for, because signing a sole mandate for a period of a year, you're really locking into this particular agent. So you really hope that you've got an agent who's got some real ability to get a sale moving. Otherwise, you're going to sit in a situation similar to the circumstances like this. So then the question is, well, what can we do about the situation? And as we've been told in the question, there are clauses that exist within the mandate that basically say, in the event that the owner, this is the seller, cancels the agreement early, they're still going to be liable for the mandate in the circumstances. That's perfectly fine. We don't have the specific wording of the clause in front of us, but a clause like that within a mandate is usually acceptable, okay, unless it is completely contra bonus mores for some reason. But generally, early cancellation of a mandate will mean that the seller, if it is agreed between the parties, the seller is liable for some sort of consideration, as a result of the early cancellation of the mandate. So we have no problem there. The question then really comes down to, well, our owner tells us that they haven't received any OTPs or any feedback from this particular agent since March. So we're talking about a period of 5 months where nothing has come back. Now, there are two countervailing factors that we have to deal with here, because the one side of the question is, well, every property is on its own merit. You as the seller, give the terms of a mandate to your particular agent, and your agent must run with whatever terms of sale you dictate as the owner in the circumstances. And so there is a question of, well, is the property not selling as a result of market conditions or the terms of sale that have been given to the agent in the circumstances, or is it a circumstance where the agent is not actually doing their job and performing their functions in the circumstances. So if there is a question of the agent is not performing their functions, it might be a circumstance where their non-performance is to such an extent that the seller might be able to validly cancel the mandate between the parties. Okay, but this has got to be something demonstrable. You can demonstrate that the agent has not done something. They haven't put up to sale signs as they indicate they will in terms of the mandate. There's no advertisement on a on a website or something to that effect. Okay, so it's a difficult task to do because the burden of proof is on the seller in the circumstances to show that their agent is not actually performing the function, and you have to be careful about the fact that it might be completely valid that the agent says, no, I'm doing what I am mandated to do in the circumstances. Unfortunately, market conditions or the terms of sale that have been given, that I've been mandated to sell this property on, simply are not favorable and have resulted in no offers coming in respect of that particular premises. So there has to be this consideration of what is the reason that, if there isn't an OTP, is there a particular reason? Does that lay at the doorstep of the agent in the circumstances, or the landlord, or the market conditions? What I will end on is basically where this question has gone is the person who's written in has said the seller has now basically decided that they want to go ahead and rent the property, put a tenant in the property because they're not receiving any positive feedback in respect of the sale. Now, we don't have the specific terms of the mandate which has been entered into between the parties, but almost certainly the mandate is not going to have a provision which would prevent the landlord from using their property in a way which they deem appropriate. So if you are the seller in this particular circumstance and you have figured out, look, I would rather rent out this property because now I'm sitting here for 5 months and I'm not, there's not been a sale, and this is now becoming a burden on me because the sale is taking a bit longer than I expected. There is no reason why you, as the landlord in the owner in the circumstances, cannot go ahead and place a tenant in occupation of the premises. All right, you're perfectly entitled to do that. The mandate ought not to stop you from using the property and putting a tenant in. That might have implications on a sale going forward. Okay. But you can also deal with that in terms of your lease agreement with a particular tenant. Enter into an agreement on a month-to-month basis, or have a term which you can actually validly terminate the lease agreement in the event that there's a sale. Alternatively, remember, you always have purchasers who maybe are buying the property as as an investment vehicle and are not necessarily intending to live in the property themselves. And so maybe the fact that there's a tenant in the property is not a difficulty for them, or alternatively a benefit in the circumstances. So not completely hopeless. You can go ahead and do your lease agreement, so at least you can have some sort of rental income during the period in which the property is still being advertised for sale in the circumstances.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nick.
Perfect. Thank you, Bruno. And we will then see you next week.
Awesome. Cool, man.
All right. Cheers.
Good.